Today's video will be a little bit different than a tutorial because this is the first video I'm doing after Playmaker 2 got released. I am exploring it myself. This is really exciting, and as you can see, I was experimenting with the regions. Regions allow you to select an FSM, and if you add a region, you can parallelly run logic in the same game object, and you can have linking between these regions as well. So that's really interesting. So I have a very small setup. I can just hit play and show what I have. I'll just get rid of the stats view. You can see that I have a first-person controller with a capsule setup, which was pretty intuitive with the new Playmaker. And I just have a press E to interact that UI enabled here. I'll just quickly disable that. So what we are gonna do is try to create an inventory system. So I have a folder created here for the test inventory test. I'll just call it inventory and go inside that. Right click, create Playmaker. There's something called data definition and data table asset. So we'll be looking at these. So I'll just create a data definition, and this is going to be my inventory item, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. If I go to Playmaker data table asset, and this will be my inventory. So here you can open up inventory item, and I'll just say add variable, and I'll call this inventory item name, which will be my string. I found that the type window that shows up, it's a little bit slow. I'm not sure if that's only happening with me. I'll just call this item count, and this is going to be an integer. Cool. What's crazy is you can add comments here, and let's say this. It's totally unnecessary, but and you can add a spacer and add the spacer in between these two items. You can add a group as well, and then put everything inside the group and collapse that, etc. So that's pretty good, but I will keep them outside the group for now. I'm not going to use any groups. I am also going to delete this comment. So we have item name, item count, and I'll add another variable. I'll actually change this type to boolean, and I'll just call this is, or I'll just call this item is stackable. By default it is false, so we can use these three parameters to create our items. So if I go to the inventory data table asset, I can just click and drag the data definition, which is the inventory item, and it'll allow me to create this table. Let's say item name is dagger. You have only one of it. It's not stackable. I'll add another item. I'll just call it apple. It is stackable. I have about 3 apples, etc. Mana potion, and you have 2 of them. It is stackable. Usually, if you're familiar with ScriptableObjects and C#, you would want to have is stackable above, like this, and if it is enabled, then you'll have the item count show up, so you can do it that way. But I think this is fine for now. I will just test this out with physical items in the world. So let's try that. Right now I have a first person setup. Let's just call this player capsule, and I'll just save it. By the way, I'll just put this scene for download if you want to play around with it. So there's an interact prompt that we have. What I can do is I'm gonna invert it because I am usually a dark mode person, so that looks decent. I'll just quickly change the camera and we will disable this by default. So right now the free look camera logic is here. I'll just quickly run you through it. It just sets the cursor state to locked, and it has an input mouse look, which is literally the mouse look. I take the vertical and horizontal axis, get axis float, and I multiply by 5. Currently it's just fixed by 5. I just do vector3 set xyz, and I have a variable called translation. This could be named better, but that's what I have here. Translation, and what it does is it sets the x to the horizontal speed and z to the forward speed. Once that's done, it just does a transform translate and relative to self, and here you would want to have, it is usually a default update, and you would want to have to switch it to fixed update and every frame and per second. So if you disable that, you can see that this icon changes, and it does only, if I run this, it will get it only for the first frame, and the character will stop moving forward like that. But I can move sideways, which is very weird. It could be a nice game. But anyways, you can change this to default update every frame, and I think that should do just fine. I think I'm gonna change it to default update as well. So that's basically the mouse look and movement logic. Now we'll just see if we can create a region, like a region. Now Playmaker already has an interaction system, but I'll be doing a tutorial on that separately, because I felt the existing, like if you can create an object, you can add a component, and if I go to Playmaker, you can see interactable and interactor right here, and that's pretty straightforward, right? So that's something we'll be looking at. For now, we are not gonna use the interaction system that was updated with Playmaker. So interaction system, so we can do this two ways. We can do a recast from the player and check if there's any object that we would want to be interactable. So in this way, what we can do is add a recast, so free6 recast mouse. That's pretty straightforward. You can change this if you add an action and there's an action that you want, but it's not exactly this, it's a variation of this, then you can click on this icon and you can change it to whichever variation you want. And this is going to be every frame. So we'll take the object and create a new variable called hit object. That's fine. We'll add a variable, and once we do that, we can just check the game object tag compare. I'll just quickly compare the hit object with a new tag. I'm gonna add a new tag called interactable, and if it is true, then we are going to check for E, and if it is not, it doesn't do anything. And here they have changed things for the shortcuts. You press Alt and then click to create a new state. You press Alt and click on any state to add a finish transition. I'm gonna undo that and pull out an arrow into the state, and this is going to be E, send an event. So this is the final interaction. And I'm gonna do the same thing here, and we can do like the tag compare as well, and do a false event and do finished, and I'm gonna go back to the first state. Now in interacted, I'm gonna add a new state. Once it is interacted, you can, let's say, pick up item, and here is where you would want to add it to the inventory to be a new data table asset, and this is the inventory, player inventory, and we can select this inventory, add variable, data definition, inventory item. Actually, if I go back to project, and you can see that there's a option here that says use item name as key, because it usually is the case. We don't want any other key, so I'll just quickly add that. And now the key is the name of the item. So the name and the key of this item. Let's say this is another apple, and data definition. Gonna add this. I'm gonna say apple is stackable, and item count is 1. Now let's see what happens. This one is checking for a game object tag. So right now we don't have any tag for the pickup here in the scene. I'm gonna quickly go to project, go to test folder, create a new folder. I'm gonna call it materials, and create a material called inventory item. I'm gonna duplicate, call this ground, gonna add it to the ground, quickly change it up a little bit. Inventory item should be something different. So right now what it does is just add a record. So if I go to data and data table, you can see all the different actions that we can add. There is a get record which we can use to see if there's already a record of apples, and then set the record so that we can change the number of apples there are. Let's test this out first. I'm gonna go to inventory, and you can see that it's already there. So let's see what happens. I'm gonna change this to interactable and save the scene. Forgot a very important thing. Activate game object in track prompt. I'm gonna copy the same thing, paste it here, and change this to deactivate. By default, I'm gonna just disable it, and now I can save it, and I'm gonna maximize and hit play. Okay, something is wrong. So this is going to be every frame as well. We're gonna do the same thing. So I think these are the ones that we need to be every frame. So now it's working. And when I press D, it shows up as a new entry. So I think I can do a deactivate here, and then add the logic based on what the object is. Yeah. So right now we are just hard coding that this is an apple, and this cube might not be an apple. So if I add a data component and say inventory item, and I'm gonna call this apple, and is stackable and 1. So let's say that is the data component that we will be applying to this. So over here on the camera, we can go to pickup item state. We'll say get data component, game object get data definition. So we might need to save the object here. So let's do this hit object. We can just use the hit object and say data definition, inventory item, and there's a not found event when there is no data component on that particular object. But we will be placing them throughout the world, so we'll just ignore that for now. So we'll just take the data component and say new data component. Yeah. And let's see what this does. We're gonna cut this out. I'm gonna create a new state. I'm gonna place this here. So let's just test this out. I'm gonna open this one and probably have the picked up item data as an output. Expand the output, and you can see that it is assigned here, but we cannot see the contents of it. So data component get field value. I'm gonna say picked up item data, and we'll select the inventory item, and we can store the values here. Item name, item is stackable, and item count. We're gonna check picked up item is stackable, and if it is not stackable, we will add it as a new entry, like how we did just now with the apple. And here I'm gonna say a new integer value picked up item count, add variable. So we have all these things, and I think all of this happens on the one frame. Check data. Okay, let's go to data table and find row. Let's do inventory, and let's do row key equals picked up item name. Set cell value. I'm gonna find row by key, and I'm gonna say apple. Add if missing, set cell value count, and here what we're gonna do is do an operator. I think int operator. What we're gonna do is take the get cell value first and take picked up item name as the key on not found reset value. Let's see what that does. Store cell value. The cell value that we need is the count, and I'm gonna store that as a new integer variable. I'm gonna call this existing item count, and we'll do an integer operator saying existing item count plus 1 is equal to item count to set, maybe, and we'll do here item count to set. I think that does make sense on paper, but we'll see how exactly this works out. So let's go through what happens in this particular state. It deactivates the UI, it gets the data component on the hit object, which is the cube, and it gets the data component. From that, it takes the data component values, which are the name is stackable and count, and it checks whether this row is available in the data table asset. Actually, I think this should go in another state because we are just checking whether this record exists here. Actually, we'll just disable this and see if that's something that works out, because we currently have an apple already in the thing here. What I'm gonna do is delete that again, save the scene, go to FSM editor and see if that works. So we need to finish this and probably destroy this game object after that. So I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna put the inventory here. Item count is 4, and you can see that it became 5. So that works, but we need to test it out with a lot of other cases. Like right now we're not checking if it is stackable. I'm gonna make it very small. I'm gonna call this apple. So I'm gonna call this new fruit orange and select material. I'm gonna call this orange. Change it. So this one, we'll call this orange. It is stackable and item count is 1. So let's duplicate this and add another one here. Actually, let me just add this to here so that I can just quickly select that one, because we need to debug that very often. Yeah. So I think right now whatever works, it works only for stackable items. Let's just run this and see. I'm gonna open the inventory. So I think we can just go back to that, to the main camera. Now I can select this thing. Weirdly enough, it is setting the definition for apple instead of orange. Let's see what's happening here. We'll just shift all of this to a new place. Pick up item, paste here, add existing. Yeah, and we're not gonna do a finished state on this one, finished transition on this one. We will need to improvise. So it says data table find row, and we'll say if it is not found, then we need a new event. Create new row. Now I would like to delete this transition. So let's do found here. Picked up item exists, and that is something that we can use for this one as well. But yeah, picked up item exists, and we'll do a bool check equals picked up item exists. If it does, then we are not creating a new row. Then we'll do add an existing, add to existing item row, and we'll do this one, and we can just do I think I understood why this is happening. Picked up item name. I should have noticed that earlier. So destroy picked up object, and then this goes back to the start state. Actually, let me just put this here, and if you click on this, it automatically crops it to the contents. Okay, so let's save the scene and hit play. And I'm gonna quickly open the inventory here. We have 1 apple and 1 dagger. We'll pick up 1 apple, and you can see that the item count went up. Item was added twice for some reason. Item count to set. Oh no. So here it's setting add new. What we need to do is just add only 1. So I'll just quickly save it and run it. Go to table. I'm gonna delete this one, and I'm gonna make the item count for this 99. So we have one more apple to get to 100. So there's that. If I press on this, it should ideally add a new item called orange. And its item count is 1 now. Now it's proper. So we have 2 oranges. Amazing. So let's fix the stackable thing, because we don't want to pick up a sword. So if I add this here, I'm gonna go to project and materials, gonna add sword. Gonna do that material, which is a sword. Sword. Even if we change this to not stackable here, it will not affect anything in the game, because if I open this, go to play mode, and if I go to the sword and pick it up, oh sorry, it needs to be a dagger, not a sword, my bad. And stackable is off. Let's do that again. Stackable is false, and you can see that the item count went up. That should not be happening. So that's the thing. Add existing. Just before this, I think we should be creating that logic. So we are taking the find row, so we have access to the row. Actually, let's just add a new data record variable and say matching data record, and data definition will be inventory item, and add a variable matching data record, and it will store it here. And in the data record get value, and we'll select the matching data record, and item is stackable. So we already have that here. We don't need to do all of this thing. Yeah. So I'll just delete this one. So I think we can get that same bool over here. So if it exists, we are going to add a new thing, bool check, and this is going to be picked up item is stackable. If it is false, then, if it is true, then it should finish and go to this one. If it is false, then it should add a new record. I think it should basically go to this one. So let's do that. Add to existing item row. There we go. I think that makes sense. Check stackability. Is that a word? Not sure. Let's save it and do that. Now I'm gonna change the item count on the dagger to 1. I think we still have we still have a dagger. So I'm gonna open this one. I'm gonna pick up an apple to make it 101. This is an orange. We need 4 oranges now. That did not work at all. Alright, let's take a look at what's happening here. Set cell value, add if missing. Actually, let's just do another state. I'm gonna copy this and paste it. And this is add new not stackable. Yeah. This will go here and cell add record. Data table asset will be inventory key, will be picked up item name. Record will be okay. There we go. So new record, new item record, and we're gonna say item name. We cannot do anything. New item record. Set record values. Data record set values. Okay. I'm gonna do new item record. Item name is picked up item name. Is stackable, and item count is 1, and that's basically it. And we're just adding this record to the table. Hopefully this should work. Let's see. Save it and open the inventory. Gonna pick up all of these. And it works properly. So that's pretty exciting. We just made a really simple inventory system using Playmaker 2. I'm gonna save the scene. I'll just export the scene so that you can play with it and use it in your own project as well. So I'm gonna save this scene. For this scene, I'm gonna export this and put a link in the description so that you can download it and see how this works. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. This is Games with Frank, signing out.